Joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates, Mina Kimes. All right, so first play we're going to look at 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What is going on, everybody? Mike Kadlick here. Taylor Kyle is there, back with another episode of the Patriots Daily Podcast here on the CLNS Media Network. And today we're joined by a CLNS Media colleague, Boston Sports Journal's Mike Giardi, all 32 podcasts. You know him. I don't need to intro him. If you're on the channel, you know who he is. We have a ton of Patriots news we're going to break down with him. We're going to start with some questions. We'll answer your mailbag questions that you guys asked. But first and foremost, Mike G, how the heck are you doing? How's everything going? And thank you so much for joining us today on Pat's Daily.
I am good, and I marvel at Taylor's stamina in Indianapolis because, as I said before I went, it's a young man's game. I'm not old, but I'm not young either. And I knew, like, I have limitations. I turned into a pumpkin at about midnight, right?
Sure.
And these people, like Taylor, being able to stay out all hours, then turn around the next morning and actually form a coherent thought, ask questions. Taylor, taped 5,000 interviews, roughly, give or take a few. Like, no, could not, would not. There's another Boston media member who said, I drank more beers the first night I was in Indianapolis than I had in the previous year total. Now, that person is a bit of a, he likes to not do those sorts of things. He likes to be in his house. But, like, I can relate a little bit. Like, I can't hang, man. I just can't.
The craziest part is this time around, I didn't drink at all. I was stone cold sober. I was basically just babysitter, which I learned is much more exhausting than being the one who's actually a little boozed up. It helps because when 3 a.m. hits and you're completely sober, surrounded by everybody, you feel it. So there's like a dark cloud brewing inside me at the same time.
Yeah, has Amit recovered? Because I'm assuming you were talking about babysitting him. I did see him one of the days, and I was like, could still be
that's why he's on the couch
still
right
be a little
now.
bit under the influence. I'm not sure. It was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but I mean, it was possible.
I mean, Amit's a different level. That kid literally doesn't sleep and still parties hard. I don't know how he does it, but I mean, he sneaks snaps in. That's his trade secret.
He's a machine too.
He's the number one work hard, play hard person I've met in my entire life, that Amit be. But I digress. Let's get into it. And right off the top, we have a little bit of breaking NFL news, and that is that DK Metcalf, wide receiver in Seattle, has requested a trade from the Seahawks. And not only that, sometimes we hear, like Myles Garrett, right, request a trade. The team is like, no, we're keeping you. Seattle says they're going to honor it, and they're going to try their best to work out a deal to get him out of Seattle, essentially. So with that being said, Mike, any intel on this Patriots-wise? Do you think, this could be a fit here? I know there's been rumors lately that they could be in the market, whether it's free agency or a trade for a, top-tier wide receiver one. I know that our colleagues Doug and Andrew reported that Pats had previously kicked the tires on DK. So just thoughts on this one off the top, and if you think he could potentially be a fit in New England.
I'd be surprised if they don't make the phone call. I think they have to, based on how their wide receiver room has shaken out and maybe some of the options that they were hoping for. T. Higgins primarily at this point not being available. And then, of course, the medical questions about Chris Godwin and what that leg looks like should he get the free agency as well. But if you don't, then what are you doing exactly? And I'm not Team DK. Like, he's not one of my favorite guys. I don't think he has gotten to the place that he was supposed to get to, or we thought he was going to get to as a receiver. And I sort of have gotten some intel from a couple people since that news came out, a short time ago, where it was like, he's not a number one. Now, obviously he'd be a number one for the Patriots, but sort of like that thing where, for as physical as he is, he's got this body that's ridiculous. He doesn't often win jump balls, which doesn't make a lot of sense. He tends to give up on some plays. And again, just hasn't developed as a receiver. And I think, as one of them told me, look at what Seattle did in the second half of last year. It was JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba. They were feeding him, not DK Metcalf. So they were almost signaling like, we're not going to pay you what it is you're going to be wanting. And, he's entering the last year of his contract. So he's going to want at 27, won't be 28, I think, until mid-December. He's going to want that $30+ million deal. Who's going to give it to him?
I'm not going to pretend like I'm watching all of Seattle's games or anything like that, but it feels like any time I do watch DK is having some kind of mental fart, whether it's like on the field, showing a little bit too much emotion, which is fine. But like when you're getting called for taunting, when you're getting unsportsmanlike conduct, when you're getting ejected at times, like this is the kind of behavior you'll tolerate if a guy's dominant when he's on the field. And does he dictate coverages? Yes, he's too talented of a player to ignore. But at the same time, if you're going to chase this guy, you're going to pay him, you're going to give up draft capital. At some point, you'd like for the diva stuff to also come with some consistent plays. So I'm curious. We know the Patriots really want this number one receiver. How much does the personality in the locker room fit factor into that? Because there are some talented players on the market, like A.J. Brown. Even if he's, a personality, he's worked with Vrabel, so that's going to work out. But for the less familiar guys, are they willing to say, we need a number one so badly, we're going to trust that Mike Vrabel can make it work? Or is that something that's in deep consideration?
I mean, I think they've signaled to you that they want to have a stronger locker room. And I think that is having two guys that have been in there with me. I think the locker room has been lacking the last couple of years, and certainly losing adds to that. But I think there were some guys that they invested in that are, I call them mercenaries, and I get it's a business and all, but like when Devon Godchaux is telling you after a game in which they gave up 193 yards rushing to Miami that they played good run defense to the last drive, what are we talking about? Or you lose 40-7 to the Chargers and you say the same thing just in general. They couldn't really run the ball against us. They didn't have to, buddy. They didn't have to because you guys sucked and they just chewed you up in the pass game. Like if they wanted to run for 150, I'm sure they could have. They just didn't need to. So I think I signaled him out because he's more vocal, but I think there are several players like that just don't, they're not a foxhole guy and they need to find more of those guys. And is DK that? I don't know. I know that the Seattle people love Tyler Lockett. Now Tyler Lockett's not the same physical talent as DK Metcalf, but like the tributes for him when everybody realized his last game, was coming at the end of the season, like likely not to bring him back. And the comments from McDonald, from teammates, Geno Smith, like just fawned over the guy, like unbelievable teammate, unbelievable player, unbelievable guy. He's 32. So he's the kind of guy, like if you could give him his personality and put it into DK, but DK's been around him for a few years. Why didn't it rub off? Well, because this is the way he sees himself. So that's a question they have to answer. But again, what if you do it and you say, we're going to roll the dice. You're going to come in here for a year. We're not giving you the extension. Now, I don't even know if he would want to do that, but let's see if you fit and let's see if you can make it work here. And if you're the guy that you think you are and you act that way here, then we reward you. But as well as I do, most of these guys, if you're going to trade me, I'm not going there unless you do something about my contract. So probably it's a pipe dream, but that's kind of how I might approach it.
They all want that pen to paper immediately, right? And you also don't blame them, but they've paid their dues, they want to do their thing and what have you. But with all of these bigger name guys, people talking AJ Brown recently, T Higgins obviously is the name that's been floated out there. It feels like there's sort of an excuse tagged on everyone of why they won't go after this guy. And at the end of the day, number one wide receivers are number one or fringe number ones like DK, and you got to go try and get those guys. But if they don't, you just mentioned Tyler Lockett. You floated a couple other names on BSJ, and throughout the last couple weeks, Tyler Lockett is gone, as you see at the bottom of the screen. Are there tier 2 wide receivers that you could see them going after? I know that there's been mentions of plan A. If there's not plan A, we're not just going to strike out. We're going to go to B. We're going to go to C. How else could they tackle this position? Should they swing and miss on one of these bigger fish? Call it T Higgins, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a matter of, and I kind of think that this should be their free agency plan in general, especially because the free agency class has, as we've seen, drying up before we even get to free agency in some cases, and wasn't that great to begin with, is to throw a lot of darts at positions of need. Bring in 3 or 4 offensive linemen, bring in 3 receivers, bring in another tight end, bring in 2 corner, It's the pre-2001. I've talked about this ad nauseum here for the last 6 weeks or so, but this is where I sort of settled even before names were starting to come off the board, before they got to free agency. And you're going to take your swing on the Milton Williams type, or if T ever got there, those sorts of things. Yeah, absolutely be in play for that. But then just add depth and competition. They didn't have enough of that. They had to start Demontre Jacobs for 13 games at right tackle. You got what you deserved. And that's not Demontre's fault. It wasn't like he was a lack of effort. He's just a limited player. and you had to force feed him, and there was no competition, be it because of injury with Caden Wallace or just performance in general. Like City So disappeared. You didn't have competition at guard. Vidarian actually, like when you go back and look at Vidarian's tape, there's a couple really awful games, but there's a lot of good ones. So maybe you can convince yourself, hey, at the worst or at the best, he's a swing tackle. But like, okay, you need a swing tackle. You just got to go find someone else to do this. So I just want it to increase the level of competition like they did before 2001. I think they signed 17 or 18 players, Roman Pfeiffer, Mike Vrabel, Mike Compton, David Patton, like on and on. Most of those guys ended up having a role on the team. Some were smaller roles, some were bigger. And then, of course, you had a guy in the 6th round who developed into one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not the greatest quarterback of all time. But like, they raised the floor of that team. He looked at the roster, Bill did after that first year, and was like, this roster sucks. We got to do something about it. So let's get some guys that have played in the league, veteran types, and maybe we can unearth something in a couple of these players, which they did. Vrabel, took huge steps. David Patton took huge steps for them. So like that to me is almost the way they should go about it, because I'm of the opinion, I don't know where you guys stand, like it's probably asking too much to turn over 25, 26 guys in the roster this year, but that's where my head's at. Like, I think that's what they need to do, because I think there are a lot of guys on that roster that don't belong, that or aren't going to be parts of what you hope is the build and getting into the future. So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, last season, you could argue there were maybe too many re-signings, but at the same time, last year I was saying, no, you can't completely gut the roster. There are some pieces you want to keep, and if you really do gut them, you look at free agency, there's not a whole lot of places you go to fill those spots. This year, offensively, not nearly as many opportunities. You're kind of hoping a couple guys hit the market. Defensively is very different. But for the offensive side of the ball, one name I want to float out there that people are kind of talking about that is an interesting case is Brandon Aiyuk. Now, we know last year, the Patriots had the best offer to get him, but Aiyuk ultimately didn't want to come. You had an unproven head coach. Drake May wasn't the quarterback yet, so he really had no incentive to come to New England. Now you got Vrabel, a guy who's done it before. You have Drake May. He's shown what he can do and how exciting he can potentially be. Would Aiyuk, if it is like a 3rd round pick, right, and then you get him back, maybe you work out some kind of compensation so you're not paying all of that hefty contract with his significant knee injuries in mind, how interested would you be in that? Because yes, it's a serious injury and there was a lack of interest, but this is a guy who's going to be almost 27 years old. There's still a lot of runway for him to improve, and it's not like we haven't seen it before. Like Edelman is one example. Cooper Kupp, like plenty of receivers have torn their ACLs and come back and still had monster seasons.
So I thought when they were interested in Aiyuk last year, that's a deal I wanted to make, because I thought going into the year he's a top 10, top 12-ish receiver, and I got some pushback on that, but I think he beats man. Like, he's their guy. Like on 3rd and 8, they weren't throwing to Debo. Yep. They were occasionally throwing to Kittle, but like 3rd and 8, they're playing man. I know who I'm going to. I'm going to Aiyuk, and Aiyuk won a lot more than he lost. The whole thing about not wanting to be here and not even taking the phone call from Gerard Mayo, okay, if you want to say that's the old regime and this is the new regime and there's more, they still won 4 games last year. So Drake May, Mike Vrabel, yes, more of a draw than Jacoby Brissett and Gerard Mayo for sure, but are we there yet? I don't know that you're there yet. Like, if I'm Aiyuk, I'm probably still thinking kind of the same thing, that I'm not necessarily sure that that's a place I want to go to. I'll give you another one too, just like, and for almost 2 decades, it was fine, right? But Foxborough, it's not Boston. It's not Providence. You're in the middle of nowhere. There's not a lot of nightlife. It's just, things close down, as you guys well know. It's past my prime, but like in my day, it rolled up a little too early for me too. So like, I don't know, like, is that attractive? You're 4-13 and 4-13. So, if you flip that, or if you're 10-7 and Drake May is a star that you think he's going to be, and Vrabel puts this thing together quick, next year, you're probably attractive again. People will probably like, you know what? I can suck it up in Foxborough because I'm going to go play with, the best young quarterback in the league, or one of them, and one of the best coaches in the league. But right now, it's a lot unknown. You look at the roster, you say, is the roster any good? The roster isn't that good. Like, so I think it's a hard sell.
Talking about,
I was going to say real quick, Brandon Aiyuk, if you're listening to this and you need a sell for the area, we may not have clubs down here, but we have one hell of a Chili's. It's lit. It's crazy on Friday nights. I don't know. That triple dipper combo, man, it'll do something to your soul. So I don't know if he's listening to the pod, but I'm just going to throw out my little net there.
Ever heard of the Walpole Mall, Brandon Aiyuk?
Oh, baby. Let me tell you.
Well,
good times to be had.
listening to Drake May on Chris Long's pod the other week, and they're talking about Foxborough. It's like, yeah, it has this cool like college town feel, and then they like mention the McDonald's off of North Street, and it's like, what are we doing here? Like,
I mean,
let's just call a spade a spade. I mean,
they had to turn Patriot Place Mall into it's like a medical facility now because they, you know what I mean? Like there's 9 million medical things there because the business is like it's just nothing. It's just
outside of six Super Bowls, Gillette Stadium is most known for like distributing COVID vaccines over the pandemic,
and that's
pretty much
true.
But,
yeah, we appreciate that at the time for sure. But
DK Metcalf himself said that it's not a desirable place to be a few weeks ago on a pod as well. So we'll see what happens on the the trade market here. But back on free agency quickly, I want to get your thoughts, Mike G, on Ronnie Stanley, someone who seems to be rumored as a Patriots fit that they're going to throw a bag at. Sounds like Baltimore could also potentially try and lock him up before next Wednesday comes. I don't know how viable that is. But do you expect the Patriots to be in on him? Could there be any competition there? What is the outlook on adding a potential left tackle? And on that too, Joe Thuney gets traded today. I don't know if Kansas City may be in that market now. They don't have a left tackle anymore. Well, they have their hodgepodge of left tackles last year, but Thuney was kind of their guy there. So.
Well, that was one of the things that I had heard at the combine. I mean, more buzz than like actual like hardcore facts of people saying like Kansas City, Ronnie Stanley makes a lot of sense. Not as so many people like to point out the salary cap. The salary. You can make it do whatever you want. They already started with the Thuney trade. That whole thing gets picked up by Chicago. So yes, they're still over the cap, people, but. I mean, literally with like 3 restructures, they'll be 30 million under and can do pretty much whatever they want, as any team pretty much can do when it comes to the cap. So there was some executives trying to connect Ronnie Stanley to the Chiefs and just looking again how the Chiefs went after they lost to the Buccaneers in the COVID Super Bowl. Like, our offensive line is broken. Let's go fix it. And they went out and they fixed it. They traded for Orlando Brown. They signed Joe Thuney, and bingo, right back to being an elite offensive line. So I think they're a team. I think there are several other teams that would be involved. Nobody with as much money as the Patriots, obviously. But again, then it becomes the sell. Does Ronnie Stanley want $10 million more than anyone else is willing to offer him? Or does Ronnie Stanley, at age going to be 31, does Ronnie Stanley want to chase a ring? And he's been, semi-close with Baltimore and would still be semi-close if he stays there. Or as we mentioned, Kansas City has been in the last 3 Super Bowls and won 2. So, maybe they can't give him. They can't give him as much money as the Patriots could. The question is he all about money? Is he all about that? Like, because he's still going to do well, 2-40, 2-45, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be nice. If the Patriots go 2-50, is that 2-55? Is that enough to sway him? I don't know. I mean, he even said, prior to, I'd like to stay in Baltimore, whether that's just posturing or not. Does feel like he wants. Like a lot of these guys at this point in his career, wants to be on a contender and wants a chance to win.
Nobody wants money anymore. What the dollar, the value of the green is no longer in effect.
Well, I bet you Cam Robinson, Dan Moore, like those guys, you want to throw them a few extra million to be your left tackle? I'm sure they would say, okay, now we're talking. I'll do that. Yeah, sure. I love Foxborough. It's college atmosphere. Chili's, McDonald's. There's a crumble cookie there, I hear, like a grocery store right there. It's awesome.
If Old Country Buffet was still in Walpole Mall, we'd be talking about.
Think about the draw that would be. I mean, isn't that where you take someone on a recruiting visit, right? You just take them to the all the biscuits you can eat. Gravy, delicious.
Not the ground round.
Yeah, no ground round anymore.
On the floor.
One more big name free agent on the offensive side of the ball is Chris Godwin. Someone who has had injury history. I know, Taylor, you had done sort of the findings on Vrabel's lack of wanting a guy with soft tissue injuries. Now Godwin's different. He tore his ACL and then he dislocated his ankle. Those are more so freak accidents than pulling up a hammy and whatnot. But on this wide receiver front, if this is option B, would you go this route? Should they go this route? Just your thoughts on Godwin and how they could potentially make that work. And is this another guy who is just going to end up going back to Tampa Bay and not even going to end up hitting the market?
It feels like the Godwin thing has slowed a little bit.
Yeah.
In terms of, I know they pushed back the bonus date, and which actually didn't allow them to franchise him. So there was some confusion about, well, they didn't franchise him. Well, I couldn't, I think, once they moved the bonus date back. So obviously they're still trying to make something happen. You just think that they've had some time to have this conversation and then maybe they're not as close as they'd like to be. I mean, once again, for what I think you would have to pay for Godwin, which I'm guessing is in the 20 million per range, 21, 22. If you structure the deal such that it's like the Calvin Ridley deal where, Ridley's 2 for 50, basically. I know people are freaking out. It was a $100 million deal, but essentially the way they worked it was 2 for 50 guaranteed. And then after that, they can walk away with minimal impact to the cap. I would think you'd look at Godwin in sort of the same manner. And again, like, do you want to quote unquote waste 20 million if he's not the same player? Yeah, it's going to leave a little bit of a mark, but because you have so much cap room and it shouldn't preclude you from doing anything else that you wanted to do, then yeah, I think you absolutely have to be in that conversation as well. And he's someone who at least too, like, I mentioned Christian Kirk as a possible trade candidate. They cut him. Kirk's played mostly inside now the last few years in Jacksonville, whereas before with Arizona, he had played outside and inside. So like, do you want Kirk, Pop sort of overlapping there? This is a guy, Godwin, who, again, really good in the slot, but also can play outside, assuming that the leg is right. And I mean, that's a pretty serious injury. So I think the medicals will matter. But yeah, in terms of like, if you do 2 and 42 and like just structure it such that's what it is and you can walk away, then yeah, be involved.
And of course, Godwin's only going to be really the top option because that's what's left. T. Higgins isn't really on the market. It's not like you're saying, oh, Chris Godwin, and then you're competing with anybody. Really, he's probably your best option. And usually, like I kind of said like I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't love the idea of an older receiver coming off injury to a big contract, but this is that locker room guy, right? It's kind of the Tyler Lockett where he's going to have an impact on and off the field. So even if he has to miss some games when he's on the field, ultra reliable, going to be able to help Drake May in the scramble drills. You know exactly what you're getting out of him, and he's going to be the best receiver on your team unless you draft somebody or able to make a trade. And like you said, even with that money, if you structure it the right way, you can get another legit number one receiver if they become available and it works out. So like usually Godwin's the kind of situation where I wouldn't like it, but because of the character, the pedigree, a guy who's had the relationship with Tom Brady, his role in Edelman's, like you can slide him right into it in this Josh McDaniels offense. So it makes sense if he would be willing to consider, I think.
And you guys know this well. I mean, that receiver room last year was a mess. It's been a mess for a while now, but like, and I think I've made this point about, you take Javon Baker has some character risk. There's a reason why he was a 4th round pick with 1st or 2nd round talent, right? Javon Baker in a different room might have worked last year or might have gotten the message sooner. Now we're getting the reports, oh, he's rededicated himself. Well, we'll see, right? Because at this point, I don't trust anything with that player, because when they tried to give him opportunity last year, he screwed it up, whether it was being late in London, etc., just still not knowing the playbook, those sorts of things. But it's like, those are kind of players that you take a risk on when your program is on the upswing and when you have a room that you feel good about. There are 2 veteran receivers, were Kendrick Bourne, who had the ACL and wasn't ready until whenever, October, whatever the date was. And then KJ Osborne, who was on a 1-year deal and like quickly realized like, I'm not going to get playing time. If I'm not going to get playing time, then I don't want to be here, because then how am I going to get my next check? Right. Which is what he was thinking. He thought when he signed, oh, I'm going to get 60, 70 catches in this offense. Right. And then quickly it became like, I'm the 4th guy. I'm the 5th guy. I'm the 6th guy.
And we're
what
losing.
are we doing here?
And we stink.
Right. So now Jalen Polk and Javon Baker are looking around going, who's showing me how to do it? And like, Kendrick has a great attitude. I think we all love Kendrick's attitude, but Kendrick still struggles with the playbook. So like they didn't have a strong enough room for those guys, which I think is why you give that room those guys a second chance.
Yep.
But you better make sure that the people that you're bringing in, which is, going back to the Metcalf conversation or even the Aiyuk conversation, like, okay, well, even if you're going to add a guy like that, then still bring me Cooper Kupp or Christian Kirk or Tyler Lockett.
Darius Slayton.
Yeah, right. Slayton, great locker room guy. Giants people loved him, right? So like, give me that guy or 2 of those guys. And like, okay, DK he's on his own program, whatever. But watch these 2. Watch how these guys do it and do that. If you want to be in this league for a long time, because you don't have those physical gifts, do this.
All right, one more free agent to throw out there before we get to the mailbag portion of the show, and it is on the defensive side of the ball, and that is Milton Williams, another Baltimore Raven. He's not a Baltimore Raven. He's a Philadelphia
Eagle.
I don't know why I did
Different
that.
bird, buddy.
Sorry, I get confused.
I am embarrassed for you.
So am I. That was tough. I don't know what.
That sucked.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Anyway, Milton Williams.
Your
Super Bowl
avian literacy is
champion.
embarrassing. Sorry.
It was the Eagles who won the Super Bowl over the Chiefs this year, right? I do.
Yeah,
have
I
that
think
one
so.
right.
I think you
Yeah,
have
okay.
that.
Milton Williams, former Eagle, current Eagle until next week, but he is also set to hit the market. Patriots rumored to be involved on him. What do you think his market looks like? Will there be competition? Is this a Monday at noontime legal tampering period opens and you get the Schefter automatic Patriots sign this guy to a bag, or is there going to be more to this? Do you find it reasonable that he could land in New England here?
I think it's reasonable for sure. I mean, I have a little bit of a question in terms of his size. And if you look at sort of Rabel's prototypical guys that he played on the inside, he's a little lighter. But I think a lot of teams, and they're all different sizes and different kinds of players, but Jalen Carter, Chris Jones, Aaron Donald. I mean, those last two guys are Hall of Famers, no doubt. And Jalen Carter's probably headed there if he keeps this up. But like the interior guy that can move around a little bit and create mismatches and just he can take over a game. And Milton Williams' ability to penetrate, get up the field and do some of those things. You know, again, he's not playing the same level of snaps as those guys did. He was under 50% snaps all 3 years, the last 3 years with the Eagles. But like he has that kind of ability to sort of get in the backfield and impact a quarterback, which again is something I think Vrabel talked about and Elliott's talked about. Like we gotta be a lot better at doing that in the upcoming year. So I think there'll be real competition. But again, if you really want the player, you've got the money. And there's a few teams that can rival you in that regard, but you still can write the biggest check if you want. So if that's the player that they designate as the number one option, then unless he doesn't want to come here again, which is you'll have to suss that out during negotiations and conversations with the agent and whatnot. I'm actually probably sure they know that by now. With the illegal tampering that's going on, he should be someone that is at the absolute top of the list and someone that could be a disruptor. And again, your defense 2-3 years ago was, DVOA top 10 defense. Whether you want to argue whether it really was a top 10 defense, we could probably have that conversation. But like they were good, and the fastest path to get back to being a competent football team again is, I think, just sort of adding to the defense again and getting them back to that level. And I think someone like Milton Williams would certainly give you the option and the ability to kind of refine yourself on that side of the ball.
And a big part of that successful Patriots defense a couple of years ago was Barmore. It feels like the past couple of years, they've had that guy. It was Barmore 2 years ago. Last year it was Keon White, not to the same level, but still a highly disruptive interior presence. But then, like, Barmore can beat double teams. Keon's not really that guy. When he got more attention and you have to move him around, it hurts the consistency. If you have Keon White, Milton Williams, if Christian Barmore can come back, that's a really scary group of guys where if even one of those guys is one-on-one, you probably don't feel great about your chances. So I've been campaigning for Milton Williams since late last season. Yeah. It's the move that makes the most sense. He's probably the best player that's going to hit free agency when you look at upside, youth, and all those things. Never been a true starter. Like, he's always been a rotational player. That's the big question mark. But, I mean, he's trending upwards. And if you want to be one of these new teams where it's 4 down, we're going to be aggressive, you need to have some kind of rotation to keep those guys fresh. So ideally, it's more like an Eagles situation where you have like 3 or 4 deep and you can cycle those guys through and it's less of a concern.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like you're Fletcher Cox when he got there, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, like there's a bunch of bodies that they've had in there. So you don't have to play 90% of the snaps, but I'm sure had they wanted him to, he could have. He's got to improve against the run. There's no question about that. And he may never be a plus run defender at his size, but he certainly could be better. And it just makes a lot of sense. And I think the other part, and you mentioned Barmore, that's a nobody knows, right? And you didn't get anything from the Patriots. Yeah, he's working out. I had reported that weeks ago. Okay, fine. He's working out. But he had a recurrence of blood clots during the season. And no one has talked about what caused it. If they know what caused it, what caused the recurrence, is this going to be something that could always pop up with him? You sort of have to keep that in your mind at this point, because it's not like it was a one-time thing. It happened again. So I don't know that you can write it in pen and say in Sharpie, Christian Barmore is there and he's going to play 80% of the snaps for us. Like, I don't think you'd know that. So having someone like Milton Williams who'd be awesome alongside of him, but if he's not there, different kind of player. But again, someone that certainly in pass rush situations can provide an impact. I think you have to do that because we saw this year. What did they have to do when Barmore went out. And again, the roster wasn't built for it, but like Jacqueline Roy and Johnson and Aquilale has to play 60% of the snaps. And like, that's not, Daniel plays 30% of the snaps, 40% of the snaps. Okay. 60, you had to ask too much of them. So
yeah.
I think they don't want to be in that position again, where they're just literally throwing bodies and saying, we hope you can stand up to it for this game. Yeah, right. There was too much of that last year.
And it is like you said, it's an unfortunate situation with Barmore, but that's how you have to attack it, where you can't necessarily rely on him being there. And if he's an added bonus, great. All the power to them to really load up that front. But if not, you can't just be like, oh, well, we're missing Barmore again. Because it was sort of a freak thing last summer. Now it's not. Now it's there and you can prepare for it. So we'll see what happens on that front, see if they can bring in a guy like Milton Williams to really shore up that defensive front.
One more thing on and I wrote this. They have an out in Barmore's contract after next year.
Okay.
It's one of those deals that was structured in such a way that, so, for those, look, the most important thing is that Christian's healthy and lives a good long life. And we know he loves football, so I want him to be able to play football too. But bottom line is, if he was smart with his money, he's still going to get a good chunk of it anyway. And, but it gives them some flexibility in that regard if Barmore can't be trusted to be that player anymore because of the health issues.
And that's honestly one thing about last year's contracts. Even if you don't like everyone they re-signed, I love the structures. It literally was, okay, you are going to help be the foundation for the next couple of years. Yep. After that, we could completely clean house and look like a totally different team. So again, even though last offseason wasn't great, I got to say, in terms of the contracts they did sign for their own guys, they did, I think, kind of put themselves in a good position moving forward.
Agree.
All right, fellas, taking a quick break here for a word from our friends over at Prize Picks. We'll be right back, and then we will get into the mailbag segment of the show. Stick around. We'll be right back. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all, and all you got to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. They now offer Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. And the second half of the basketball season is officially here, and the race to the playoffs is heating up on Prize Picks. So don't miss your chance to cash in as the league's best fight for playoff positioning. You think LeBron James will get more than 24 points? You think Giannis will get more than 35? Cook up those hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season. All you got to do is sign up on the Prize Picks app today, download the app, and use that code CLNS. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, that is Prize Picks. Head over there, use that code CLNS. You get those $50 instantly after you play your first $5. Ton of Celtics hurt tonight, but Jason Tatum looking like he's still on the board. His number tonight, more or less than 29.5. I guess I'll ask you guys that. What do you think? Tatum more or less than 29.5 tonight against Portland?
This is a prime letdown game for them.
Yeah.
However, he's been playing awesome.
Yeah.
I'll take more.
More, obviously, my knowledge of the game.
I was going to be shocked if Taylor said less on Tatum right there. But if you want to play again, we'll have lineups here posted all the time here on CLNS. Celtics-Lakers coming up this weekend on Saturday as well. So if you're into that kind of stuff, join in on the fun and use that code CLNS. All right, fellas, let's get into it. Mailbag questions. People in the live chat watching, if you have any questions, do throw them in. We'll try and get to as many as possible here in the next couple of minutes. But we will start with this one from our friend Los Talks. Pats. Los right off the top. He was first, and he got the most likes right on Taylor's tweet, so I had to give it to him.
He was at the Senior Bowl. Nice kid. Met him.
Yeah, Los is good stuff. He's also actually, I'll throw this out there. We'll throw this a little bit later, but I believe he is now a tier member of the Patriots Press Pass. He gave me shit on here for my Caesar salad pizza earlier, so I got to.
As he should. It's a sick choice.
That's garbage.
I can't find it, but we'll tell you guys about our tiers later on.
I don't know anything about birds or pizza. Jeez Louise.
Vegetables on a pizza. What a jerk.
Hi, we're gonna riff about that after, because I gotta get on you guys for the pizza. But high level question here from Lois. The vibes seem very high around the team right now. What's one thing that is in the back of your mind that you're sort of worried about moving forward with them?
Taylor, go first.
Oh, of course, yeah, me. You have to be negative. I will say the secondary really
gonna hurt Taylor,
because the Mike Pellegrino and Brian Belichick departures, I didn't love it, because those are guys who understand those rooms. They've been with it for so long. They've had success. And also, I like the idea of guys who are familiar with how these guys tick and where they play the best, because we know Christian Gonzalez, he's really a man corner. Like, he can grow as his own corner. If he becomes like a ball hawk in this more zone heavy system, I'm all for it. But, as much success as some of the coaches like Scott Booker and everyone were able to have in Tennessee, in New England with these guys, they're still unknown commodities. So that's really my biggest concern. Is I think the offense, they're going to put all the resources that they can. I trust Josh. Also, Terrell Williams. I have no idea how it's going to look when a career defensive line coach is also responsible for the secondary. We saw what happened last year. It's not apples to apples, but, DeMarcus Covington was a damn good defensive line coach as well, and we saw what happened. So at least Williams has the relationship with Vrabel, and they've game planned together. Dan Campbell mentioned that he was a big part of that, so hopefully there's some collaboration where it works out. But really, when it comes to that back end, I've got a lot of questions, even though obviously with Gonzo, you can't really go wrong. I just want them to maximize him and whoever they've got.
Yeah, I would just say, and this isn't in the back of my mind, this is in the front of my mind, it's just the talent on the roster. And I go back to the comment of swapping out 25, 26 guys. Like, I remember doing the 40, as we all did our 53-man rosters, with different projections over the course. And I remember doing that final one and being like, I felt good about like 40 guys. Like, that's like, I'm literally like, I guess, yeah, you need depth there. So I'll put him on. Like, and they can't be in that place again. They need to be in a place, and I don't know whether they can just do this in one off season, where they're in a place where there's real competition at so many spots, which again is why I advocate signing a ton of mid-level free agents, or even the slightly lower tier, but guys who have played in the league and have experience, and just throw it at the wall, see what sticks, give me more bodies to work with, and give me more options, and create that competition that was sorely lacking last year. I think they need to do that. And so that's just for me, like, not only is it the high-end talent, because we talk about how many blue chippers do they really have? Christian Gonzalez, Drake, you hope, trending in the right direction. Barmore from 2 years ago was trending in the right direction, but like, where else? It's just not there. So it's not only the high end, it's also the middle of the roster. So if you can't get the high end, which free agency may prohibit you from really doing, because there's not too many of those guys out there, you got to have a good draft, and you got to just sign a bunch of different bodies and hope that some of those guys stick and make you a better football team.
And the Patriots always feels like got negative attention for being one of the older teams when they were good. It's like every year they're like top 3, one of the oldest. And now at times like this, you miss it, because obviously you take that, I think, leadership for granted when it's there. And then you have last year, right, where Bentley goes down and you've got people on the team acknowledging, well, we don't really have that rah-rah guy anymore. And you can feel it, where they don't seem as aggressive and as like high energy on defense. So that's just one side of the ball. Obviously the offense in almost every position group needs a veteran leader as well. So yeah, I get that. Not only the talent, but also just guys who know how to win in this league.
Yep.
I'm actually going to go outside the roster here, and I'm going to kind of go with everything else organizationally. Like, you look at the NFLPA survey that came out, and yes, they are building a new facility, but things like these, these airplane issues, and we're sitting here with, ashtrays in the seats still. And I listened to, my colleague Albert Breer on NBC Sports Boston a lot with you guys, kind of mentioning how the Patriots outside of the roster are so far behind in just, departmentally organizations, like freaking the scouting department is kind of backed up, and there isn't this like new age feel to this organization that most other teams do. Call it, even the Miami Dolphins, who graded out superbly on that thing, or even you look at Vegas with the Taj Mahal facility they have out there, like things of that nature. It just feels like they are lacking here. And yes, they have the cap space. They seem to have a head coach in Mike Vrabel who is going to garner the organization to kind of move it forward. But does he have enough pull? And do him and Cowden and these sort of higher guys on the totem pole have the pull to really turn this thing around from top to bottom, not just the roster, but the entire organization?
Yeah, it's a great point. I will say too, like, of the thing in the survey, that it got some mention on the radio. They were talking about it, and it's something that, having worked in the NFL Network for 5 years and sort of like learning more about the ins and outs of other teams over that course of the time, the whole moving thing, where you hire coaches in January because you didn't make the playoffs, or February, and their families are in different places, and usually there's kids involved, and they stay 99% of the time. Those families stay to finish out the school year. It's the right thing to do, right. Stable for the kids, etc. 2 weeks for temporary housing, and then you're on your own. Literally, I talked to 5 or 6 different execs who were like 4 to 5 months for what we were giving.
Oh my God.
4 to 5 months for a coach, and look, there's long-term housing. So you're not in a hotel room, $500 a night, hey, they have connections and houses that you could go stay in for whatever. That's significantly cheaper than you would be thinking if you're staying at the Renaissance right there at the stadium. Right. But that's a massive difference. 2 weeks versus 4 to 5 months is absurd. And even there, it's Vrabel's negotiated for a few of his guys to get longer than that, like a month. What are you doing?
I know.
Treat your people like
and that shit gets out clearly.
Right.
The word gets out.
Right. Look, and there was another part in there about they're on the hook for some of these coaches because they had to give them extra years because it was so unstable here. And it's well, you can create stability by treating people the right way and doing it the right way. And for so long you had Bill and Tom, and it was all these things got pushed to the background because you just won. You constantly won. And everybody's making fun of other teams because of this. Well, now you're the team that everybody else is making fun of because, you don't have Bill and you don't have Tom. How's it gone for you since then? How many years are you into the rebuild? Oh, you think you can still be cheap? You think you can do this?
Right.
You can't get away with it now. There's so much money. They're making so much money. Turn around. Don't build the lighthouse. Make sure that you have a state-of-the-art facility. Then build the lighthouse.
Right.
Take care of your people. Then build the lighthouse.
And it could all be lip service, but you do hope Mike Vrabel saying we want to treat, if you treat the team well, we want to treat you well. It did seem like that was an area of emphasis. Again, he's got to prove it, but at least it does seem like the head coach and the guy who's running the organization underneath them has that in the forefront. Also, a little piece of breaking news. While we were talking, the Eagles re-signed Zach Bond to a 3-year, $51 million contract. I don't know if the Patriots were at all tied to or interested in Zach Bond. Obviously, we do know they're going to target linebackers, but Bond is one guy who's now off the market.
Yeah, I didn't feel like that was going to go in. I didn't feel like he was leaving Philly anyway, but
yeah.
Smart for him to stay. It works there. You're getting paid more money than you ever thought you were going to get paid. You get to play behind some mooses up front, makes your life a hell of a lot easier. That. Yeah, but that probably now, if you were thinking Milton Williams or Sweat and Bond, I don't know, does that preclude them from doing it? They gave some, they guaranteed Barkley's money, essentially, is what they did. Forget about the numbers of the extension, just basically guaranteed what he had coming. So I don't know. So maybe that just makes those guys even more available instead of, because I had wondered, would they get 2 of the 3 done?
Right.
Or is it 1? And do they take that big swing on Myles Garrett?
Yeah, good point.
That one will be fascinating. But all right, back to the mailbag here. Joe Milton, where would he rank in this draft class? A year of NFL coaching, not under his belt, but working with NFL coaches. The asker asks, why wouldn't he command at least a 2nd-round draft pick? That feels a little steep to me. But thoughts on Milton in general, where he would rank here, and then also if the Patriots would ever end up, kind of floating him out there on the trade market.
I mean, to the latter part, if someone wanted to get stupid, and to me, a stupid would be a 3rd at this point. I think you're doing some serious drugs if you think a 2nd is on the table. But I've been wrong before, so who knows? You can hit me back if that ever happens in the next 2 months or whatever. But if someone was crazy enough to call you and ask you for a 3 and you picked him in the 6th round, that's massive return on your investment.
100%.
You don't
one football game played against backup,
right? And then you know what you say to yourself. Well, we did pretty good drafting that kid in the 6th round this year. We'll do it again. Last year, we'll do it again this year, and whoever that kid might be, so Riley Leonard, somebody like that, you just say,
right,
there's the athleticism. He can do certain things. Where would he be in this class? It's hard for me to say, because I know the question was framed if he had a year of NFL experience. That's a big difference in terms of coaching.
For sure.
Because he was in college for 6 years and he still couldn't go higher than the 6th round because he never quite learned how to play the position. And he looked a lot better than I thought in the summer. And he looked excellent in the final game. Again, you take that with a grain of salt in the terms of what Buffalo was doing and who they were playing. But I can't get past the fact that all those teams let him go to the 6th. Right. Like, to me, those things that were flags then would still be flags now, even though you have this one game on tape that you saw. So as much as people want to try to like, oh, he's better than Shedeur or better than whatever, Jackson Dart, maybe he is. I mean, certainly physically he is better than both those guys, but like the whole package, I don't know. So I couldn't put him ahead of those guys.
It feels like the best case scenario, unless obviously someone offers something good before the draft, is keep him in the camp, see if disaster strikes for a team. This happens every year where you're saying, hey, our options are really thin. We either go with this, veteran who we know exactly what he is and he's going to just be, or we can get this guy, Joe Milton, and at least we're going to have some fun. We may not be good. We'll get a good pick, but at least we're going to, have a good time doing it.
That was the technical term, by the way. I liked it. Yeah. That was very well said. I think everybody understood where you were coming from there. And I agree with you. Like, that's one of those things, like, okay, if no one's going to blow you away now, if someone offers you a 5th, screw a high 4th, probably not. Like, we'll hold on to it. Then you get into the summer, Teddy Bridgewater, awful, but he blew out his knee, non-contact in the summer, right? Then they have to go trade a 1st for Sam Bradford, who obviously had more of a resume than Joe Milton, but you never know. Something happens there. He has a good preseason outing, and maybe the buzz gets a little higher, and you say, hey, you know what? Like, maybe a 2nd is worth it here. Let's do this. Or, where our jobs are in trouble, like, let's go, overpay and do it. So I think unless someone gets crazy now, it makes sense to just hold on and keep developing and hope that he takes another step forward this year.
Agreed.
Yeah, a 2nd is crazy. I don't see it. And the way you outlined it there, Mike, was perfect. Where you had all these reservations on this guy for so long. He has one good game against, again, like we said, basically Buffalo's backups. Yes, he played very well.
He did,
but his thing was not fully understanding, I guess, an offense, and so now he has to go to another offense in a different system after just learning this one. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I don't see 2nd round. I don't see 3rd. Maybe, again, if a team wants to, throw you a bone here, maybe turn him around because there's not as much need for an insurance policy on Drake May, unless, of course, he gets hurt, right? But, I mean, what you have in this guy. So I just don't see it. I would say you just leave him around. Taylor?
Let me say really quickly, 3,000 people watching. Giardi with the engagement boosted, man. Thank you all. I just wanted to give a shout out. That's fantastic.
Mike
G. Good. We're having a good time in here. I wanted to say one more thing too about that. Like, and there was a great piece by Andrew Callahan and Doug Kide, and their thoughts on the combine and what they had heard and talked to. And there was a nugget in there about Joe Milton, and Joe Milton thinking that he's a starting quarterback right now. And you obviously want that confidence. Everybody should have that confidence. But let's see how that plays. Like, because right now, dude, you're not competing for the number 1 job. The number 1 quarterback is the guy they picked 3rd overall, who did a lot of nice things in his rookie year. You're the number 2. So work on your development, worry about that, helping the team as best you can in that role. And we'll see about whether, again, a lot of young guys, a lot of different egos. Like, we'll see how that all settles.
I remember I got that impression last year from listening to Joe Milton, even in the summer when he answered questions. It's like, this guy sounds like he very much thinks he's in the mix, which, again, yes, you expect that, but it did kind of in the back of my mind. I'm like, is he going to enjoy being in the background and all that? And it seemed like they all got along very well, so that kind of quieted down. But, yeah, that report, I was like, no, that makes sense because Joe Milton.
It totally meshed, absolutely.
Like the tight end comment when they asked him about that, he was like, no, I'm a quarterback. Just like, oh, okay.
Right.
Say so.
You need that confidence even as a backup, but at the same time, you don't want him to be sitting there going, well, why aren't I getting the reps over Drake May? Which he doesn't seem like he's that kind of person either, but
we'll see. That's exactly. Just keep one eye on it. Just to see.
Exactly.
Taylor, you mentioned we have 3,000 people in here, so I know we're going to answer all of your questions, and we don't want to keep Mike G here for too long, but I want to just play a quick video telling you guys about a brand new feature here on Patriots Press Pass. We'll talk about that, and then we'll wrap this up with a couple more questions right after this.
What's going on, everyone? Taylor Cowles here for CLNS Media with a very exciting announcement. Here at Patriots Press Pass, we will be introducing bonus tiers. Now, this will not affect any of the content that hopefully you've grown to know and love over here at Patriots Press Pass. It's all going to be some brand new stuff and extras so we can connect with you more and also provide you some more in-depth and high-quality content. Hopefully, You guys are going to like it. Here are the tiers and what you should be expecting from all these new bonuses. At tier 1, we've got Rookie Starter. That'll come with ad-free content, early access to videos, 5% off of all merchandise, and even custom emojis. At tier 2, we've got All Pro. Once again, ad-free content, early access, 10% off merchandise, custom emojis, but that'll also come with player profile film reviews and draft profiles. At tier 3, we've got GOAT status. Same as all the other tiers, but it's going to be 20% off of all merchandise, and we're also going to have custom segments, Discord chat rooms with myself and other show hosts, as well as live film reviews with myself and whomever we've got on the podcast for that day. Hoping to have some pretty fun guests.
Close to the mic.
What? That, man. Custom emojis.
Yeah, I didn't hear it before. I was like, I didn't realize I was that close to the mic when I recorded it.
I'm just fascinated by custom emojis. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean like I can do like the Mike Giardi face, like as an emoji form?
That's a question for Ahmed. I'm just the pretty face they put out.
Did you look over the side? Is he still alive? Is he breathing down there, Ahmed?
He's okay.
I miss that dude. He's the best. He's the best.
Ahmed is the best. He's putting this out. He's helping us put that together here on Press Pass. There's going to be a ton of new exciting features. So again, Taylor told you all about it there. But if you're interested, check it out. There's 3 tiers involved, so should be exciting.
I am Taylor Kyles. You could get the emojis.
Pay me. So exciting stuff here coming on Press Pass. All right, let's wrap this up with a couple of more questions here on the Patriots free agency offseason and the NFL draft, which we'll go to right now. And it's on the wide receiver front. Would you rather have a chance to take Travis Hunter at number 4 or trade back, grab some more capital, and take Ted McMillan?
I am going draft Travis Hunter.
Let's go.
I think he's the best receiver in the draft, and he's the best corner in the draft. Like, you know, and there was Paul Kaharski, who covers the Titans, had a piece out where I guess he said, and I don't know who you talked to, but it was push comes to shove. If you have to force him into one position, he'd prefer receiver, which makes a lot of sense because they make more money at the top end of it. I'm down with that. Like, okay, like he is one of the few blue chip guys at the top of this draft. If he falls into your lap at 4, I trust that they'll figure out a way to make it work. And I have serious reservations about the idea that he, you know, playing 100 snaps a game. I think that's nonsense. I don't think a body's going to hold up at that, especially at this level. But okay, give me 50 snaps at wide receiver and 15 at DB, or you're going to flip it and do it the other way, which is how most people think. Like, yeah, I'll sign up for that.
I'm sticking with Travis Hunter. There's not a whole lot of guys I'm comfortable with at 4. It's him and Abdul Carter pretty much. So this is truly blue chip talent. He's going to come in and make you significantly better, has the potential to be Pro Bowl, All Pro, really whatever he wants to be. Really just depends on coaching and how he's used. As much as I do like Tet, I think we know, like coming out of the combine, I feel a lot worse about him than I did going in because he didn't test.
He's not testing in the pro day though, right? He's not going to, at least he's not running in the pro day. So like, I know that they have the tracking and you get the speeds and stuff, but he's basically telling you I'm a 4.7 40 guy and I'm just going to rest on my tape. And that's what Drake London did. But at least Drake London had a foot problem, right? When he didn't do it, he was just like, I'm doing it, but I'm going to go my way and you're going to have to watch the tape. But at least he had the excuse of my foot's a problem. Whereas in this case, Kadlick is freaking me out here.
Don't ask. I'm sorry.
What the hell is happening?
Keep talking.
I know. I lost my train of thought. I was like, we lost Kadlick, and then you're over here, and then here, and I'm over there, and this whole thing. Yeah. So Tyler Shuck had a great answer to Todd McShay. Shuck's the 25, soon to be 26-year-old quarterback who's gotten a lot of buzz since the Senior Bowl. And his line was, you compete to compete. You say, and his point was like, man, like I play football. Like I want to compete. So I want to compete in everything. And I know Travis didn't test. I get it. But Tet's signaling I'm not testing at all to me is like a little bit of a red flag, a concern. Like, do you think you're Randy Moss? Like, what are we, how are we viewing this? Like, you're not that. Like, I would like to see you run. Show me you're ready to compete.
And the one thing about Tet's game, and I know Will mentioned this on your pod, is when you look at the production, everybody talks about that. And one thing I like Tet's traits, I like to talk about that and how we could translate. I don't talk about the production because I'm sorry, dude, you set a record against New Mexico. what am I supposed to say? And I watched it. Like, I'm not looking at that game and saying, like, oh my God, the traits are popping. I'm like, yeah, he's huge. He's a foot taller than everybody trying to cover him. So as much as I like Ted, it's not like he's Travis Hunter where he's a Heisman winner. He's like a top 5 lock. That's not what we're talking about. This is a guy who did feel like he had to go out there and prove at least that you're quick, that you're changing directions there. Like, show people something. Like, who cares if you're slow, if you're quick? At your size, prove that you're a freak in some regard. But yeah, I don't like not testing at all. It seems like he's nervous about it. And all the talk now about him slipping out of even the top 10 and maybe even the first round. Like, I think first round may be a little rich, but I mean, it makes sense because I really wanted to see him excel in something. And now it's just a lot of question marks that are going to cause concern.
Yeah, 100%.
Travis Hunter is the guy. It's not really that close to me. I feel like there's no knock on him. Like, I feel like everyone tries to corner him in with the Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders, like, my shit doesn't stink, for lack of a better term, type of guy. Right. He's not that. He's just very good. He works really hard. He stays healthy. He plays both positions. He does so with, minimal time to A, catch his breath, but B, like, make, adjustments on the sideline because he has to go play offense and everyone has to go play defense and vice versa. Like that, his ability to do that is incredible. And I don't see him doing it like that in the NFL. But the fact that he did so at the college level makes it completely viable for him to be this sort of flex player that you want him to be.
Think about the fact that he has never really been coached to play wide receiver, which is why I'm more and more intrigued by the idea of him as a receiver first. It's like he was this good and he literally didn't practice it. He doesn't have the nuances of the game yet. Like, he's going to become better as a route runner, one would assume, with all his gifts, if he puts time into it. If they say, this is your position, go do this. Like, what's the ceiling for that player? Like, he's already really good. The comparisons with Devonta Smith in terms of the body control, the ability to go get the ball in the air, and obviously Garrett Wilson. And I look at it and say, like, I don't know, would you pick Garrett Wilson at 4? Like, would you do that? I probably would. I probably feel pretty good about that if I'm the New England Patriots and now as we're talking about the cost of these receivers too, like, I get him on cost control for the next 4 or 5 years. Yeah, absolutely.
And you know how, like, usually a quarterback and a receiver, if they've got good chemistry, quarterback will have a little signal and the receiver knows what to run. That was Travis Hunter in the offense. Mm-hmm. Literally, it would be Shedeur Sanders giving him the route, and then he's like, okay, got it. Because he didn't have time to be as involved. Like, it's absolutely crazy. And watching him at receiver, I was expecting to kind of give him a little bit of a pass. Like, all right, I get it. I was like, oh, no. This dude's literally a stud. It's literally F it, we ball. He's just the football player through and through. Man, I got to watch me some more.
He's like, make a note.
Yeah. All right, I want to stay on receiver here. On the T. Higgins angle, because yes, he just get franchise tagged. There's something's gonna happen here, whether it's T, whether it's Jamar. Like, it just does not feel like they're gonna be able to make both these happen and keep both these guys happy. Patriots have sort of tried for this wide receiver 1 thing. I know, Mike, you reported or mentioned, at least on the pod, that if T. Higgins is available, the Patriots will be first in line. There's clearly interest there. He is tagged. Could they trade for him? This comment says the sweepstakes have effectively ended. I still don't see that. I think there's another bubble here with T. Higgins. So what are your thoughts on T now and where the Patriots could slide into this situation?
Well, think about T. Higgins, for instance, just the DK Metcalf thing. So DK gets traded in the next week, whatever happens, right? And that team immediately turns around and gives him $32 million a year over 3 years or 4 years or whatever it is. And T's price goes up. Like, Cincinnati has so massively screwed this thing up. Like, they should have gotten this done early. The price keeps going up. They could have probably gotten T done for $480 last offseason. They didn't. They tag him, and now they're in a place where, what's the cost? $4 and $120? Like, where are we? Like, is it higher than that? It might be. Jamar talking about $40 million a year. Like, what are you going to piss off Joe too? You're not going to, or you're going to tag him, and then is he going to show, not show? Like, they just put themselves in such a bind here with that I still do think, for all their bluster, and I shouldn't say bluster, they believe it. They believe Jamar, then T, Hendrickson's down here. Like, he's the third guy on the list that we're trying to do. Like, they're trying to get that done for their quarterback, for how they want to build it. I'm just not totally convinced that it's doable. Because if I'm T, I'm not really moving off my spot. No, dude, if I went in the market right now, I'm making $34, $35 million a year. So pay me that. And they're going to go, we're not paying you 30, 34, 35. Okay, well, then what? Then you're going to franchise me? Okay, I can show up, but boy, my hamstring's bothering me. I don't know how much I can practice. I don't. Oh, my calf. That doesn't feel great. Oh, I feel good today. I'll play today. I'll go put up 8 catches today. I'm not practicing next week because that calf came back. That last play, 100%. I don't know if you saw me when I was blocking. Like just a thing. So,
but I do block.
Craziest thing.
Yeah, right. It's such a thing. And like, there's also the case to be made for if you're Cincinnati. Again, not to go on a Cincinnati tangent, but like, you have freaking Jamar. Sign Jamar. Just get a competent number 2. You go sign Christian Kirk. You go sign Tyler Lockett. Like, they'll be good because Jamar's getting 2, right? And he's still getting open. So this guy's going to be eaten. We saw Mike Gesicki, who couldn't do jack diddly squat in the Patriots offense. He ate in that offense, and T didn't play, 5 or 6 games last year. So I still feel like, to the point that that's not over yet. The T might still be out. The question is, the Patriots, do you wait? Because this could linger. This could be a July, August thing.
Oh my God, that's going to be really fun again.
Right. Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like T's been a happy camper through this either. Last year, obviously, you're going to tag me, and I'm the only one who doesn't get a new contract. You're going to play with my money like that. And now this year, when he gets tagged, period. Like, yeah, that's one of those cryptic receiver texts, but it doesn't sound positive. Other than the agent change, there's nothing from T's side where it sounds like he's all gung-ho to come back. I'm sure he wants to play with Joe Burrow, but he's got to think about himself and his family and make himself some money. And I'm sure if the Bengals are at the point where they're just like, dude, you kind of bent us over a barrel here. Like, we put ourselves in a position where we have to now get crazy to retain T or to retain Trey Hendrickson and say, hey, we're going to invest serious capital. We're going to try to get your receiver in the first or second. We're going to get a pass rusher. We're going to get you Jamar. We're going to get you your Binky. And we just have to build in other ways. I'm sorry. Like, if he's going to go out guns blazing, like, I'm sorry. If your quarterback's just irrational, hey, you already put yourself in this spot. But yeah, I think it's kind of silly to just think there's no way that T is going to go anywhere else because this has been so messy for the past couple of years. And it seems like it's only getting messier.
Yeah, there's no question that they've just, again, like, they just have completely butchered the situation and cost themselves a lot more money and a lot more headaches. And in the end, they might still not be able to, despite all their attempted maneuverings here, they still might not be able to get it done and satiate everybody that needs to be satiated.
Jamar just makes that one is infuriating. Literally, like, the nth percentile of wide receivers. And you're like, oh, we'll wait. I would have signed him as a sophomore if I could. Like, this is
right.
Sign him to the deal as soon as he steps off the stage at the NFL draft. But all right,
Like,
I want to wrap up the show with this one, with free agency just around the corner. If you had to sell the Patriots to a dream free agent, but you could not mention Drake May, how would you do it? What would you say to said player to try and come play for the Patriots? Taylor,
Mike, you want to go first? This is your expertise.
I just went and just like ripped the facility. We talked about the ownership issues.
Oh, hey,
we talked about Foxborough
cigarettes
being
on
a
airplanes?
college town. Are you going to sell Chili's again? Is that like?
I know.
I don't.
I only got one of those.
It's hard. It's hard.
Applebee's.
That's why I liked this question.
JetBlue and Delta hub, sort of, kind of.
Yeah.
Is he getting
in Worcester, Boston, Providence? Yeah, you can't really. You got to take trips to the airport.
It's so. I would say
Attleboro's a really nice town. I don't. North Attleboro. Like, I don't know. Like, do you want to be? All right. Here's what it is. This is what I'm going to do. Mike Vrabel, good coach in Tennessee. Took the year, as a consultant, whatever he was doing there with Cleveland. Like, really. Like, steered himself in the right direction. He knows what went wrong in Tennessee. He's going to be better the second time around. How many times we see this coaches that sort of their second chance? Hey, he's Bill Belichick. Belichick's first job, pretty good. Then it tailed off, and then he had to kind of fight his way back. He's gonna be Belichick. He's smart. But unlike Belichick, he's sort of a player's coach. Like, I did the story with Ben Jones and Jeffrey Simmons. You talked to some of those guys about like what he would do for you to make it work during the week. If you had something going on in your personal life that was pressing, like, he'd work around it. Like, that stuff is important to him. So you've got that whole aspect of it. And like, dude, you can get in on the ground floor. Like, we're rebuilding the thing. the dynasty, we're coming back, man. It's going to be the second run now. You know, like we're going to do this and you're going to be a big part of it. And they're going to put you in the Patriots Hall of Fame. And who knows, you might get a statue next to Tom Brady if that ever gets erected outside the Patriots Hall of Fame as well. And like, you know, like we'll set you up. It'll be a good place. That's the best I can do.
Okay. Taylor,
that was pretty uninspiring.
But
I was gonna say I don't even know how to follow that up. I think I'm just gonna.
Hey, there's a Bass Pro Shop, so if you don't like the cold weather, they got all your gear. You can get long johns upon long johns, and the hand warmers and the fanny warmers and all that stuff. So it's there for it. And if you like to fish, go in and fish in the pond there. You're like, yeah.
So it's a good and bad situation that they're in here. Well, I don't even want to say it's a bad situation, but it goes to show how important the quarterback is and how having Drake May makes everything else sound so much better. The money, the cap space. Okay, yeah, you're in New England, but we can win because of Drake May. And yes, we have Mike Vrabel, who is a good coach, can be a hard-ass players coach. But you have that, and also we have Drake May. And it's like it all comes back to him, which if shit hits the fan, it's no good, and we're back to square one. But as of right now, he was all the rage, at least according to what I've been able to take out of what everyone said from the combine, that this is the guy. They have the guy, and that's the most important. And I don't know how to pitch it outside of him, but it looks like they're at least in decent shape because they landed him with number 3.
And I wanted to say like Christian Gonzalez, maybe you slide him in there, but honestly, like corner is literally such an isolated position. His job is to do his thing and basically never be heard from. So it's like you can't even really sell. The only player outside of maybe Drake May who you could legitimately see potentially making the Hall of Fame. Actually, I would say maybe even Drake May. That's a lot. I think Gonzo is maybe the only guy really in that caliber. So, I mean, Giardi, you did a really good job. Maybe if somebody really appreciates DB play, that'll help, put it right over the edge.
Yeah.
But who knows?
It's not the easiest sell, Somebody in the comments is like, oh, it's not like Boston. Boston is in Miami, but why are we acting like it isn't a top 5 city in the USA?
In terms of price, sure.
Yeah, right.
If you want to go to, and I've talked about this too, like when people were just like hyper fixated, well, they got all the money, they're going to get these guys. I'm like, well, the Chargers have money, lots of it. It's Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Right.
Would you want to live in Foxborough or would you want to live in Los Angeles?
For like a $3-5 million difference, like.
Yeah. I'm just, so there is that, or hey, no state taxes, like Florida, Houston, like those sorts of places. Oh, that's a good team too.
You're also not in Boston,
right?
You're in Foxborough. Yes.
And you're probably living in Providence or Foxborough. Like you're not close to Boston. You're not just like a train ride. I mean, I guess you technically are.
You are a train ride, but who's getting Drake? Nobody's getting on the commuter rail as a Patriot, right?
45 minutes from Boston is hardly a far drive. For an NFL football player, it's 100% a far drive. 100% a far drive.
Yeah. So
that's all I'm saying.
I'm with you. It's a tough sell, but nonetheless, Mike G, thanks for joining us today. This was really fun.
Awesome time, guys. You're really chopping up football anytime, like we can do this thing. It's fun.
You're always so generous with us. Appreciate
it. BSJ, all 32. What's down the pipe before we get you out of here?
We'll do a little free agency preview on the all 32 coming up. I don't know, Thursday, Friday. As Amit knows, my co-host Will, love him, mean it. It's sometimes hard to get him nailed down on the time, so sure. we're working on that. Continue to do free agency previews for Boston Sports Journal. Edge rushers are out today. We'll do the offensive line, which I had to relive last season. You should kind of do like a recap of last year before you get into possible targets. And it was just like, what the hell did they expect was going to happen? Like when you just looked at how it all shook out. I couldn't even write about Chuks Okoronkwo before. I just put it at the end. I'm like, I've written enough about him. Like we don't need to rehash that anymore.
No,
I'm at my wit's end after writing this. So let's just leave it there. So yeah, that's
a writer for the people.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Guys. This was a ton of fun. We will be back here on Pat's Daily either tomorrow or Friday. Still trying to parse that out. But we're going to go through more free agency, more draft, trying to figure out our dream offseason for the Patriots. So keep it here, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Check out the pod anywhere you listen as well. Not just this pod, but everything on the CLNS Media Network, including all 32. We got the Great Bernard Patriots podcast, Patriots Beat, and everything else under the umbrella. So, again, thanks for watching. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you soon. Peace out, everyone.
Ah.